Hiya, I'm Jasper, and welcome to your video review for The Dark Knight. It's a movie starring the always a win Christian Bale, the late great Heath Ledger, as well as the amazing Gary Oldman, and of course Michael Caine, because this is a Christopher Nolan movie. So, as always, I'm going to give you the good, the bad, and the furry. To start off the furry, there are some dogs that make a bitey appearance, but that's about it. Moving on to the good and the bad. So, this movie made, I think, over $1 billion in the box office. It's hailed as the greatest movie of all time by many different top 100 lists or whatever else. So, I assume you've probably already seen this movie, and there's not much that I can add to it. But, on the offhand chance that you haven't seen it yet, what I will say is that it is the second one of the Christopher Nolan Batman trilogy. And I really liked the first one. I very, very much liked this second one. And the third one, I still liked. But obviously, I think that there were some things that had to change because of Heath Ledger's untimely death. But, with this one being hailed as so much greater than all the others, that, maybe you don't want to watch the third one because, it couldn't be as good. And then maybe you're like, but do I really need to watch the first one? What I will say is I have rewatched the second one a number of times without rewatching the first one nearly as many times. And really the only thing that could be necessary from the first one that plays into this one is that in the first one, spoilers for that one, is that in the first one he gets in a fight with somebody and his house ends up burning down. And so in this one, there's a lot of scenes set where his Batcave is in the basement construction area of what looks to be a high rise, and then his actual hangout pad where he's living is in a high rise versus Wayne Manor. And they even bring it up in the story oh hey, Wayne Manor has burned down, so while they're reconstructing it, he's living here. They do it in a much less clunky way than that, but it's so fluid that honestly the first time or so that I saw this movie, I didn't miss Wayne Manor, but I also I also missed the part where they explained why he wasn't at Wayne Manor. So it wasn't until I actually noticed that part that I was like, oh, that makes sense. So I just wanted to let you know, in case you missed it, that's why he's not at Wayne Manor. Obviously, it's a Batman movie. Hopefully you got that from a general knowledge. And this one has Heath Ledger as the Joker, and I also got to be honest, other than maybe the 50s Joker or something like that, basically from Jack Nicholson onward, I have liked all of the Jokers because they are very different interpretations of the Joker. So I know that some people really don't like one or the other or whatever, but I think people generally do like the Heath Ledger Joker. And that's understandable because he has it's Heath Ledger. You can't, this movie is absolutely amazing. What I will say, aside from just the acting from everybody, because Gary Oldman is always amazing, just phenomenal actor. I love him. He just gets into every role. He's like a Johnny Depp, where you can't even recognize him sometimes when he's in a role that you're like, oh shit, that is Gary Oldman. Oh man, oh. So, so good. And then Christian Bale always gives 100%, and I love that about him. He is absolutely phenomenal in everything. So really, this is just me kind of gushing about the individual actors and how they were able to portray things. They swapped out, the love interest. It also has Aaron Eckhart, and I really like him in almost everything that he's done. So I really enjoyed his part in this. The one thing that I will say, and sort of, not for him, but what I will say is that there's a scene where he makes a decision that ends up in somebody not being killed. And that's kind of the only thing that doesn't really work for me. I think that every other instance of somebody dying or not dying, all that sort of, all the decisions for the various characters all work for me. But one of them in particular, I don't think makes much sense. Because I feel like that person would definitely have died. Because I would have done that, but whatever. That's just me. The other thing that I really like about this movie, and I think that they say this line pretty early on, so I don't really consider this a spoiler. But one of the things that they say early on in this movie is that, you either live long enough to become a villain or you die a hero. And variations are of, like, you either die a hero or live long enough to become a villain, like, Point is that line, I don't know if it originated in the comics, I don't know if it originated in this movie, I don't know if it originated in, like, some fucking biblical BC era, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Don't know, don't care. Point is that I remember it from this movie, and I feel like that line, that philosophy, that thing, that is so true. And I think that it applies to so much of just everyday life with everyday heroes. Because nobody's perfect. Nobody is perfect. And I think that sentiment of the only thing that people like love more than a hero is watching them fall. And so it just happens with the various media conglomerates, people, fandoms, whatever out there, that you either die a hero or you live long enough that, hey, it's your turn to fall. They're going to find something that they don't like about you. And I think that's so true, because nobody's perfect. Founding fathers weren't perfect. Heath Ledger wasn't perfect. Christian Bale's not perfect. Christopher Nolan, nobody. And of course, Batman's not perfect. Everyone in this movie, everyone in general is not perfect. And so I think that is just a super important lesson in a very entertaining way, because this movie is not a preachy movie, but it is very entertaining. But it has such good lines like that one, and then like the whole story that Michael Caine's character told, and about how like some men just want to watch the world burn. That is also true. So it's just fantastic to see this exploration of humanity in a Batman movie. And yeah, so also they really, really stuck to practical effects in this, and I think that is so good and so important for having a movie last and be as timeless as this one has shown itself to be so far. The other thing that I will say is that I recently rewatched it on HBO Max, and much of this movie was shot in IMAX, which has a different aspect ratio than traditional, like, widescreen cinema. And maybe it's just a device that I was watching it on, but it only showed the widescreen aspect, which wasn't a big deal, because I think that he shot it in a way that, like, you could cut off the top and bottom of the IMAX bits to still get the, like, action that you needed for it, because he understood that many theaters were not going to be IMAX theaters. But this was one of the movies that was shot with a lot more IMAX than is typical for a movie, and with IMAX, it has a different screen ratio. So I was a little disappointed that the HBO Max version didn't include those screen ratio adjustments. But I can also understand it, because I have watched it on Blu-ray before, and switching like back, like the opening scene where they're like zooming in on the building, that's shot in IMAX, and then suddenly it just switches to widescreen, and a little while later back. So it is it's not even a little jarring. It's just like, if you notice it, you're gonna notice it. So I can understand why they did that. But just wanted to caution you if you're gonna be watching this, because if you do want the IMAX type of experience, you're probably gonna have to buy it on Blu-ray, because the HBO Max version, I don't think, just Max, doesn't have that aspect ratio change as much. Maybe you don't care, maybe you do, but just throwing that out there. But yeah, 2 thumbs way up. Check out this movie if you haven't already, and you don't need to watch the first one or the third one in order to appreciate what this one's message and just acting and plot, pacing, lighting, CGI, everything is just phenomenal with. So yeah, also there was one last thing. One last thing is that there was like another instance towards the very end where I feel like a 10-second conversation would have saved things, but then it would have made the very end more difficult. So I get why they did it that way, but it's kind of one of those like rom-com type of things where it's like, oh, just one conversation would have prevented the fall, and then having to wait for you guys to get back together type of thing. But I get it. So that's all I have for this one. Thanks for coming. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you at the next one. Bye.